faith like a mustard seed, right? So what's being highlighted here is not simply smallness. It's interesting. It's the paradoxical nature of faith. Faith on the face of it seems small, and therefore it seems insignificant. It seems unimportant. What's the most I can hope for? To believe in the reality of God, to ask God to be a pillow for my weary head, right? Whereas in reality, faith is the means by which I tap into the power of God. To use kind of a quick analogy, it's like that story, Jack and the Beanstalk. All I have are these stupid beans. Yeah, these stupid beans can give rise to this enormous beanstalk by which you ascend the heights of heaven. Same thing here. I look at my faith like, oh, I simply have faith. No, your faith is the means by which you tap into the power of God. The same power which raised Jesus Christ from the dead, the same power which can make impossible things actually possible. Now the Lord goes on to talk about a sycamore tree. So what he says is, if you have faith like a mustard seed, you could say to this sycamore tree, or this mulberry tree, be uprooted and planted in a sea, and it would obey you. First of all, this image of the tree being uprooted, you need to know something about sycamore trees. So there's this thing called the Mishnah. It's a collection of ancient Jewish sayings about every manner of life. Not just the spiritual life, but very practical matters, almost surprisingly so. And the Mishnah has very particular instructions about, for example, digging a well. So what it says is that if you're digging a well, make sure that the closest tree is at least 25 cubits away. Make sure the closest tree is at least 25 cubits away. A cubit's like 1.5 feet. But then it says, if it's a sycamore tree, 50 cubits. And the whole point is everyone would have known this. Sycamore tree, oh, that's the tree with a really extensive and deep root system. So you see the metaphor, right? It's a metaphor for our various attachments in life. Not simply our struggles, but our attachments. Things to which we are so attached that we think, well, gosh, this is just a part of my life. This has always been the case. This will never, ever change. How often do we have that mindset? You're looking at problematic relationships. All I can hope for is that we coexist, that we're simply polite, that I maintain the stance of self-protection, as opposed to real reconciliation. How many times do we look at our sinful habits? I can't hope for real healing and transformation. I can simply hope to be accepted in my brokenness. This is especially true when it comes to fear. How often do we come to terms with our fear? I'm just used to being afraid, like all the time. All my decisions, the things I pursue, the things I avoid, is based on fear as opposed to desire, as opposed to love. And gosh, that's just the way I am. I will never, ever change. And so you stop trying. You stop trying things which are different. You stop trying things which are new. And what the Lord is saying is that when it comes to these various attachments, they might seem impossible, but nothing is impossible for God. If you have faith like a mustard seed, faith in the power of God, all things are possible. Now you have this corresponding image of a tree being planted in the sea. Think back to the book of Genesis. In the aftermath of the commission of original sin, our first parents, Adam and Eve, they are banished from the Garden of Eden. But according to ancient legend, they were allowed to take with them one thing, a flower, a really beautiful and fragrant flower, which could become this really amazing fragrant perfume. Because it was so rare, it was immensely expensive. And you can take it one step further. Apparently, according to legend, that's the same perfume in the gospel that the sinful woman, this prostitute, uses to anoint the feet of Jesus before he dies. This is the same woman who wipes the Lord's feet with her tears and dries them with her hair. It's a very interesting analogy. It's like one of those things you blink and you miss it. Basically what's happening here is that the woman is repurposing, if you will, the fruits of her sinful labor towards something good and noble and holy. Again, here's this perfume. It's rare, it's expensive. I could only buy it by being a prostitute. But now I repurpose, again, the fruits of my labor to do something wonderful and glorious, an act of love for the Lord. I anoint him in anticipation of his suffering and death on the cross. You hold that thought and you think about this parable, right? What the Lord is saying is that if you have faith as a mustard seed, faith in the power of God, you can repurpose to deep desires of your heart, as symbolized by the roots of this sycamore tree. To what end? To become planted in the sea. Before, these desires led to various attachments, sinful behaviors, but now they are redirected, repurposed, if you will, such that you might become planted in the sea, to become this safe haven for other people, a beacon of hope for other people navigating through their own personal storms. Shades of the Gospel of Matthew chapter 13. So what shall I compare to the kingdom of God? It is like a mustard seed, which is the smallest of all seeds, but then it becomes the greatest of shrubs. It becomes this tree where the birds can come and find safe haven, can make nests in its branches. The example that comes to mind, years ago I saw this episode of Britain's Got Talent. Basically the show revolves around a bunch of contestants. They come forward, they're evaluated by this panel of judges led by Simon Cowell. And this contestant came on. His name was Gruffydd Wyn Roberts. His particular talent, he could sing opera. And in passing, he said, oh, by the way, I live with my grandmother. And Simon Cowell was like, why do you live with your grandmother? Because he was 22 years old. And all of a sudden, he got really nervous. He started to stutter. And he said, well, I didn't know my father until I was 16 years old. So you imagine all sorts of wounds from his past. Fatherhood wounds, identity wounds, attachment issues. And the song that he sang, to put it politely, was very safe. It's the sort of song you sing when you have no confidence, when you're worried about screwing up. I'll sing a song, it doesn't push me, it doesn't stretch me, I can hit all the targets, and yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. But no one will know how good you are, because the song doesn't push you to your limits and beyond. And what's more, it's not even the song he wanted to sing. You kind of realize that in retrospect. So he's singing this song, which is safe and boring and bland. And all of a sudden, Simon Cowell is like, you know what, stop the music. What's going on here? You seem really nervous. That was very cold and mechanical. But I feel like there's more to you. I want you to let go. I want to hear that warmth. I want to hear that richness. What else you got? He said, Nessun Dorma? Now, I don't know if you heard the song Nessun Dorma. It is like really, really hard to sing. It's a song which is most closely associated with Luciano Pavarotti. Technically, it's very difficult. It ends with two really high notes, which are both sustained, a B4 and an A4. That might mean nothing to you if you don't know anything about music, but if you've seen K-pop Demon Hunters, the high note in that song Golden is an A5. So there's a couple clicks below that. It's especially difficult when you consider the context of that song. That song appears in the context of an opera written by the 20th century Italian composer Puccini. And the opera is called Turandot. And it's about this princess who is beautiful but mean. So what she says is like, look, you can marry me if you answer these three riddles. But if you can't, we will kill you. So a lot of guys die. And all of a sudden this prince shows up and he answers all three riddles correctly. And so the prince gives her one last out. If you can guess my name by dawn, you don't have to marry me, and you can have me killed. So she tells everyone in the kingdom, no one shall sleep until you find out the name of the stranger. And that's the name of the song, Nessun Dorma, no one shall sleep. Now when it comes to the end of the song, despite these impossible odds, the character in the opera, he's hoping beyond hope. He's not simply optimistic, he is hoping beyond hope. And it builds to this crescendo. And what he says over and over again is, I will win, I will win, I will win. And it coincides with those high notes I talked about. And here's the thing. If you're singing that song, and you want to have any hope at hitting those high notes, you have to enter into the space of that character at this moment in the opera. You must be fearless. You can't play it safe. You can't hold back. No backup plan. I am all in. If I lose, I lose. If I die, I die. And I die this glorious death. But if I win, I get to marry the princess. And that's what happens in the context of this talent show. So this guy, he's trying to sing this song. And the song starts off low and slow. And he's nervous. And he's scared. And everyone can tell. Everyone can see it. And all of a sudden, there's this musical interlude where there's just music. And so he has a break. He can kind of catch his breath, collect his thoughts. And the camera turns to his friends. And they're holding their breath. And they got tears in their eyes. We want you to win so badly. And all of a sudden, this guy shouts out, "Come on, Griff." Like, I'm going to drag you back into the fight. I know you're terrified, but I will drag you back in the fight. I will drag you across the finish line because I love you so much. And the guy finds it within himself to hit those notes, and so he nails it. Now, if you ever watched Britain's Got Talent, they got this thing called the golden buzzer. So basically, any one of the judges can press that buzzer, and if they do, the candidate goes directly to the semifinals. And so one judge presses it, the music kicks in, confetti from the ceiling, and everyone starts applauding. He gets a standing ovation. The judges give him a standing ovation. His friends are losing their minds. And you see him, this guy who was previously terrified, just like seconds before. He's not just happy, but he is completely fearless. No hint of self-consciousness. He's jumping up and down with joy. And he's screaming to the highest heavens. They give his friends permission to go and join him on the stage, and they embrace him, and they hug him, and they kiss him, and they say, "Look, we love you." Because they're sharing in his joy. They're sharing in his victory. One final example on with this. I didn't share this with the 5:30 crowd, but that's the advantage of coming to Mass on Sunday. So, this is a quick movie example. This is a scene which I refer to like a lot for myself personally, to kind of remind me what God is like. Rocky 2. Not Rocky 1, Rocky 2. So Rocky 2, basically the same plot as Rocky 1. It's about this underdog boxer, Rocky Balboa, and he gets a rematch against the champion of the world, Apollo Creed. But what happens is his wife, Adrian, the love of his life, does not want him to fight because she remembers the first movie. You were almost killed. And so why can't we just be together? Why can't you just retire? And so she disapproves of this second fight. But then she falls into a coma. And so Rocky, he's training, he's preparing for this fight against the champion of the world, but he's kind of going through the motions. He's kind of sad, he's kind of weighed down, not simply because he's worried about his wife, but because my wife is not happy with me. Here's the love of my life, and she's not happy with me, she doesn't approve of what I'm doing. And what's implied is that I cannot win the biggest fight of my life if she's not in my corner. And then there's this beautiful scene where they're in the hospital, and she wakes up, and he's holding her hand, and he says, I don't have to fight Apollo, don't worry about that. And then she has this playful look on her face, and she says, Rocky, there's something I want you to do for me. And he's like, what? Like, come here, come closer. Win. And he can't believe it. And she says it again, with a little more seriousness, a little more focus. Win. And the music kicks in. His trainer, Mickey, is like, what are we waiting for? Training montage, and he beats the champion of the world. Whenever I have to remind myself of what God is like, I think about that particular scene. It goes to this question we're afraid to ask. Or if we do, it's like with fear and trembling. How does God see me? Is he happy with me? And because we look at, the things we've done, the things that we haven't done, who we are, what we're not, we think, well, no, there's no way Jesus likes me. And so at most, he wants me to suffer and endure and survive. The Lord is crazy about you. He's so happy to be in your presence. And what does he want? He wants you to win. To not simply survive, the Lord wants you to thrive. To be free, to be fearless, to be fully alive. But do I believe that? Do I lean into that? And such is the invitation, right? Have faith like a mustard seed. Believe that God doesn't just simply want you to be happy. He has the power to make all your dreams come true. If I believe that, maybe I give myself permission to live my life, finally, maybe for the first time ever.